chords. Let's talk about chords and chording. A quick definition of chords on harmonica would be, well, any instrument. Let's just leave it at any instrument. Would be two or more notes played simultaneously, though many people would define it as 3, 4, or more notes. But we still do, as I mentioned earlier in the demo, where we will actually fatten up notes by playing an adjacent note. And it's a kind of chord. I don't personally think of it so much as a chord, but it's sort of like a chord technique. But we'll get to that in a little bit more detail in just a minute. But generally speaking, I think most people would consider 3 or 4 notes a true chord, like on piano or guitar, 3 different notes, 4 different notes, that sort of thing. And it's really darn easy to do on harmonica to play chords, though it's limited. I'll talk about that in just a second. But really, you take your nice, lovely vertical slot where we're blocking the notes out of the, with the corners of our mouth, blocking out the side holes. And there's my 2 draw. And what I'm doing is I just put it further in my mouth. So instead of so, okay, the chord instruction's done. Bye-bye. Now, I'm going to get into more detail about how to use it and a little bit more detail. But, you know, that's essentially it. If you want a chord sound, put it further into your mouth. Don't widen your lips. Put it further into your mouth because, as you know, those of you who have seen a lot of the prior classes, it's all about getting the harmonica as far into our mouth as we can. That gives us that nice full tone and sound. So I do want to make the point, though, that harmonica is not a chord instrument, at least not a standard diatonic or chromatic. They actually do build and make and sell. I think Hohner still has them, and possibly Wang harmonicas, Huang. Those of you keeping track of the spelling. They have chord harmonicas, and they're these big old. It's it's that mirror weird thing with the screen where I can't figure out where to put my hands. They have these big old harmonicas, and they actually have in different spots different chords: a C chord, a D chord, an E chord, F minor, E flat major. All these different chords, and you actually go dunk 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 dunk. You just kind of move back and forth. They look like a big sandwich, frankly. Let's see if I'll pull out another harmonica just because they're interesting. By the way, bass harmonicas are like this too, where there's actually, they're hinged. There's a top half and a bottom half, and they're all blow, and you would go, it's hard to do with just my hands because it's not actually hinged, but so that's the way a chord harmonica works, but that isn't what this is. Essentially, you have very, very, very limited chord production on a harmonica. It's nice to fatten up notes and make a bigger sound, but you can't really play rhythm chords. The exception might be if you pull out different key harmonicas and you go. So to get a different chord, I switch diatonics. But essentially, for all intents and purposes, practical purposes, we have anywhere you blow on your diatonic a blow chord, which is the chord based on whatever key harmonica you have. You got a C harmonica, it's C chord. Play down at the low end and draw. That is a chord based on the perfect fifth above the key of the harmonica. Talked about this many times, so I won't go into a lot of detail here. But if you have C, here's your blow chord. C, D, E, F, G is the draw chord on your C diatonic. So blow, C, and G, like that. Okay? So just want you to understand, some people go, oh, well, you know, I can play chords on the harmonica. No, you can't really, unless you start getting more technical and start swapping diatonics. Now, one thing you can do on a chromatic is you can get two-note chords by playing octaves. And you can play different chords by playing octaves and then doing some kind of, you know, pushing it around. I'm playing an E flat octave on my chromatic, and that can be used as background, kind of like a chord. So instead of playing piano or guitar, you can kind of fake it with octaves, but you're only going to get all those octaves on a chromatic because it has every note available. Diatonic, not so much, especially with octaves. So it's not really a chord instrument, but it doesn't mean we can't use chords. And a lot of you that are brand new beginners and you still haven't mastered your single notes, don't worry, but don't stop working on it. Keep working on it. Do understand that players like Bob Dylan, Neil Young, Tom Petty, Bruce Springsteen, they play sloppy single notes. I'm not even going to call this a chord. Let's just call it sloppy single notes. So they're sort of purposely playing sloppy, purposely adding some chord sound in there for a variety of sound. Sometimes you get single notes, sometimes they don't. But that's not really what we're talking about here. We're talking about more about playing real chords and on purpose to fatten it up. So if you are still learning single notes and you haven't quite mastered it, keep doing that. Don't worry about this stuff. But when you go to chords, again, put it further in your mouth and make a clear distinction between black and white. There's that, there's that mirror thing again. The black and white thing where you've got clean, clear, perfect single notes and then a big fat chord. So we have single notes versus. So work on them separately. Try not to get caught in that gray area in the middle. You won't make as much progress as quickly. So if your single notes are still weak, that's okay. Just keep working on them. You'll get them. Go back to the single note class if you still have problems with that. But the chords, the sloppy thing is not quite, what we're talking about. But what we are talking about is using chords for things like chugging. In our country harmonica class, I believe country harmonica 2, we did 1, 2, 3, 4. So I'm playing a low draw chord. When you say low and draw at the same time, you get law. Yeah. A low draw chord, put it further in my mouth. And again, don't widen your lips. Put it further in your mouth. It's not, because then you'll still suck from the front of your mouth. We want it deep in our mouth. And you get that nice, big, fat chord tone that we like.